Okay, welcome back. This part's going to now see how we're going to put all this together as such. So, where these bits are, I can start to draw these in there because I know that they're going to be 3 by 3. Want them slightly different, so I'm just going to draw 3, go down from these squares here, project the line going up from the bottom to 3 down, do exactly the same, and that way, that's if I wanted it thinner. If I wanted it a bit thicker, then what I might do is be inclined to change it that way, and I think that's probably how I will do it. Okay, now the E, we want this to be slightly different, so what I'm going to do with the E is do the basics, slightly into the box there. This isn't 3 by 5, I've changed the grid to this because I want it to be a different effect, which hopefully you'll see in a second. But what I will need to do is make sure I get this absolutely symmetrical. There we go. And so I've got a rough idea now of how those E's are. Now I do exactly the same as what I've just done. I'm going to group this one. So I just go to Edit, click onto Group, and then from there, keeping its proportion, what I'm going to try and do is fit it so it's actually square. So however deep it is down, and it's saying that is now 50. I just need to make sure it's 50 across. Okay, and I'll do exactly the same with the other. Okay, so the next stage is to do exactly that. I'm actually going to click onto this side, do exactly the same, edit, go to group, sorry, from group, leave the same gap, and then what I can do is just stretch this so it's exactly the same, 50 by 50. So keep in proportion. Now don't worry if it doesn't fit on the page, because then all we'll do on that note is to shrink it so it fits into the actual size that we want it to do. So the next stage for me is to group all of it, and I'm going to make this the actual size that I need it to be. So at the moment, if I wanted the bag, which I know is probably going to be about 16, so if I say 160 by 10, just to move this into position there, I think really what we're looking at is to get the proportion right. It's something that sort of size, maybe even smaller still, but it seems to be all in proportion now. The other thing I've got with that is that the 5, looking at it, isn't level with the E, but I can change all that in a second. Right, next thing I'm going to do though is draw a border around it all, just to make it look a bit better and to edit it a little bit better. And then at that point, that's ready to work in. Now, all I'm going to do then is zoom into that area. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to round some of the corners on some of the edges, and to do that, it's arcs. Click onto arch. I'm going to set mine to 3 initially. And then what I'm going to do is start to round some of the edges. Now, you haven't got to do this on your designs at all, but I'm developing mine to make it look a bit different. It doesn't matter about the squares as such, because I'm going to be cutting a lot of these out because I'm doing mine like a halo sort of type font. So using this command, my next stage is to do all that, and rather than watch that, I'll pause the video and we'll come back to it as soon as I've done that. Okay, so we've just come back to the drawing. You can see I've rounded all the corners off using the R command. I've left some that aren't, like the bottom of the F, but most of it is quite rounded because that's the style I've sort of wanted. This one I've put as a radius of 3, that one is a radius of 6, that one is a radius of 10. I've just guessed that, but there's an easy way to work that out. But I've just done that by sight. The spacing's the same. So if I turn the grid off now, what we're looking at is a basic sort of font like this. Now it could well be, if you're designing yours and you're developing it, that you're actually saying how you've developed it, and you're taking screenshots as you're doing it. On my folder I didn't, I just went straight to the final bit because I had a lot of the sketches in. But this could also be your development sketches, saying what you're going to change, so how you get it from here to the Halo one that we're going to use. But it's fairly straightforward, the Halo one, and I'm quickly just going to show you on the E, and then again I'll freeze it and come back a bit later on. To make it look like Halo, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use some lines, and I'm going to change the grid this time, and I'm going to change the grid to 2. And that will get it very, 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 very small. Now if I zoom out, it'll look as if there's not a grid there, so you just have to be mindful, you have to zoom in. And because I'm focusing on the E, and I want a bit of detail, what I will do now is click the grid lock on, and we'll start cutting things out. Now with the Halo one, it's quite easy, because they do nice little jagged sort of things from there. So as I start cutting things out, and also it's not just about cutting things out, it's also about adding things in. So as I'm cutting things out and adding things in, what I'm starting to do is change the look of that font. So I can do things like this, actually build that square out, and I can have free range on this, and this is where your creativity comes in to see what it actually looks like. And of course if you save this before you come in and started cutting, what you might be able to do then is, if it does go wrong, is you can always change it back and revert back to your saved drawing. Obviously I'm not doing that, being a little bit more professional and used to this, and perhaps what most people are, I'm just going to sort of try and freewheel it and go it from there. So what I will do though is cut quite a deep one in here, just to give it some sort of background, so when I actually stick it onto a letterhead I can still see some sort of shape. And so I'm developing it all the time. I think I'm probably going to change this even more now, and I'm going to make this bit quite thin. I'm going to try and link in with some of these images there. So if I did something like this, but I've still got to make sure it looks like the letter that I'm trying to create. Okay, I just need to snap onto there and there. Now I've got to make sure that this is a closed profile, because it won't work when I come to cut it out if it's not. So change that back to 3, and from there to there, get rid of that line. So we're always making sure that these lines are fully formed and cut. Now obviously changing the top like that, what you'd expect me to do, which I shall do, is mimic something very similar onto the bottom. Just get a bit of symmetry. And so I'm lining these up, just in case you hadn't realised I'm actually working this. I'm going to get close line as I can, and there we go. And that's how I've done the E. Now I'm going to start working in a little bit onto these as well. So I'll come back in a second. I'll pause the video for a second, and then I'll come back once we've got all the lettering complete. But you can see I've done it using the del command and just drawing the lines in. So if I zoom out, you can see where we're going with that one. I've probably overdone that one and over-designed it a little bit, but I can also, remember, add little curves in to this as well if I find that it looks a bit too sinister or I'm losing the shape of the lettering. So I can add little combinations of curves where I need the curves to be. Put a little curve in there. Okay, so I'm going to carry on doing the epsilon, at which point, when it's all finished, we'll come back and see how we're going to transfer that onto our product.